Hello and welcome to the science class. My name is Teacher John. I'm going to take you through Science Primary 6, Term 2. The topic is called cattle keeping. In our previous lesson, we looked at methods of grazing animals. We looked at zero grazing, free range grazing or herding, then advantages and disadvantages. So today we are going to look at practices that harm cattle. Practices that harm cattle. Now, we have very many practices that harm cattle in the field, in the abattoir, in transit, or when they are being transported. So we're going to look at all of them. Let's begin with practices that harm cattle in the field when they're eating grass, when they're grazing. Which practices do we do that can harm them? One is beating cattle. Beating cattle. When these animals are eating grass, farmers or the herders may end up beating them, which is a very bad practice. So, beating cattle is a bad practice that can harm them. Sometimes you can beat these animals to death, which is bad. Making the rope too tight when tethering. Making the rope too tight. Making the rope too tight. Making the rope too tight when tethering. Making the rope too tight when tethering. We say tethering is a method of grazing cows or animals where the rope is tied, or either on the peg. We tie the animal with the rope either on the peg or on a tree. So sometimes when we tie these animals using ropes, we end up hurting them, especially if the rope is too tight. So making the rope too tight when tethering. Then grazing animals under harsh weather conditions. Grazing animals. Grazing animals under harsh weather conditions. Grazing animals under harsh weather conditions. For example, we may graze animals under too much sunshine, or we may graze animals under heavy rain. Those are bad or harsh weather conditions which can harm animals. And sometimes these cows or cattle can end up dying, which is bad. Then next we look at practices that harm cattle in transit. Practices that harm cattle in transit. Practices that harm cattle. Practices that harm cattle in transit. In transit means when they are being transported. When these animals are being transported, which practices do people do to harm them? In transit, the word transit comes from the word transportation. Practices that harm cattle in transit or during transportation. One, making animals walk long distances. 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 Sometimes animals can be made to walk long distances, like from Kampala to Mbarara, Kampala to Mityana, Kampala to Kasese. Those are long distances. If you make animals walk long distances, sometimes they end up getting harmed. So animals are not supposed to walk long distances. That is mistreatment of animals. Overloading animals on trucks. Overloading animals on trucks. Overloading animals on trucks. Overloading animals on trucks. Sometimes when animals are being transported, we overload them on trucks or in lorries. We put very many animals in one lorry or on one truck, and they end up dying because they are congested. Another one is starving animals during transportation. Starving animals during transportation. Starving animals during transportation. Starving animals during transportation. Sometimes when animals are being transported from one place to another, they are kept hungry for a long time. Animals are being transported from Mbarara to Kampala, but they're not given any food. They come when they are hungry the whole day. It's a long distance, and apart from that, these animals are not given food. They are starved. So to starve animals is like you are denying them food. You don't give them food during transportation. It is a way of harming these animals in transit. Then poor loading of animals on trucks. Poor loading of animals on trucks. Poor loading of animals. Poor loading of animals on trucks. Poor loading of animals on trucks. When animals are loaded poorly on trucks, sometimes they die. What do we mean by poor loading of animals on trucks? For example, when animals are being transported, you mix big bulls with calves, big animals with small ones. That's poor loading. So you mix big animals with young animals or with very small animals. Like for example, you can mix goats with cows, sheep with cows, piglets with bulls. You put them in one vehicle, one truck, one lorry. That is harming them because these big animals will step on the small ones. By the time you reach the destination, the small animals are dead. So you cannot transport cows with bulls, with big cows on the same truck. That's poor loading. Then transporting animals in the boot of a vehicle. There are people who put animals inside the boot. That's bad. Transporting animals in the boot of a vehicle. Transporting animals in the boot. Transporting animals in the boot of a vehicle. Like you get a calf and you put it in the boot and you drive off because you're transporting it. That's bad. Then dragging animals. Dragging animals. Dragging animals. Animals are not supposed to be dragged. There are people who tie animals with a rope, then they just pull them on the floor. They drag them physically. That is dangerous and very bad. Especially when animals are tired, when you're transporting them. When they refuse to move and they fall on the ground, sometimes you just drag them. You tie the rope in the neck and you tie the rope on the truck. Then you drive the truck and the truck ends up dragging these animals along. This is very dangerous. Then lastly, tying the neck of animals on the side of trucks. Tying the neck. Tying the neck of animals. Tying the neck of animals on the side of trucks. On the side of trucks. This practice is bad. So these are practices that harm cattle in transit, making animals walk long distances, overloading animals on trucks, starving animals during transportation, poor loading of animals on trucks, transporting animals in the boot of a vehicle, then dragging animals, tying the neck of animals on the side of trucks. Next, we look at practices that harm cattle in the abattoir. Practices that harm cattle in the abattoir. An abattoir is a place where animals are slaughtered. Practices that harm cattle. Practices that harm cattle in the abattoir. In the abattoir. Practices that harm cattle in the abattoir. I've said an abattoir is a place where animals are slaughtered. So when these animals are going to be slaughtered, which practices can harm them? One, overcrowding animals in a small room. Overcrowding animals in a small room. Overcrowding animals in a small room. For example, you can buy like 20 animals, 20 cows. You won't slaughter them, but not all of them on the same day. So you bring 20 cows and you put them in a very small room where they cannot fit. And some of them end up dying because they don't have space to breathe. That's overcrowding animals in a small room. Slaughtering animals using blunt tools. Slaughtering animals. Slaughtering animals using blunt tools. Using blunt tools. Slaughtering animals using blunt tools. Then starving animals before slaughter. Starving animals. Starving animals before slaughter. Starving animals before slaughter. So there are people who starve. They keep animals when they're hungry just because they are going to slaughter them. Like for example, animals are to be slaughtered the next day. The whole of today they are not, or the day before. they are not given any food. If you ask them why, that they are going to be slaughtered the next day, so they don't need to be given food. That is bad. So starving animals before slaughtering is bad. Then slaughtering animals using blunt tools. You get a panga, a knife which is blunt. You try to cut, but it's not cutting properly. Yet the animal is feeling pain. That is a practice of one of the practices that harm cattle. If you want to slaughter animals, use sharp tools. Cut one, and the animal is already slaughtered. Then slaughtering an in-calf cow. Slaughtering in-calf cows. Slaughtering in-calf cows. Slaughtering in-calf cows. Slaughtering in-calf cow. An in-calf cow is a cow that is pregnant and big. An in-calf cow is a pregnant cow. Is a pregnant cow. So it is very bad for you to slaughter a cow which is pregnant. So those are some of the practices that harm cattle. Then we have practices that harm cattle on the farm. General practices that harm cattle on the farm. Or routine activities that harm cattle. We have routine activities that harm cattle. Routine activities that harm cattle. One, we have dehorning. Dehorning is a routine activity that harms cattle. Number two, we have, apart from dehorning, we have castration. Castration, we have branding. Branding, we have tail bobbing and ear notching. Ear notching. Then number five, we have skin tattooing. So these are routine activities that harm cattle on the farm. Dehorning, castration, branding, ear notching, and skin tattooing. Then you can add tail bobbing. Tail bobbing. Next, look at record keeping, starting a livestock farm. First, starting a livestock farm. Starting a livestock farm. Starting a livestock farm. One, we have factors to consider when starting a livestock farm. Then we have importance of livestock farming. Let's give you the importance of livestock farming. Importance of livestock farming. Importance of livestock farming. Importance of livestock farming. One, livestock farming is a source of income when animals are sold. Livestock farming is a source of income when animals are sold. It is a source of income. It is a source of income it provides meat or beef. It provides livestock farming provides milk. Like for example, cows can provide milk. Goats can provide milk. Then it provides employment to people. It provides employment. Provides employment to people. So this means that people are employed to look after these animals, like the cattle herders. They are employed, they are given jobs to look after animals. Requirements for starting a livestock farm. Requirements for starting a livestock farm. What do we need before we start a livestock farm? Requirements for starting a livestock farm. Requirements for starting a livestock farm. Which requirements are needed? One, we need capital. Capital is needed. Capital. Number two, we need land. Number three, we need labor. Number four, we need market. Number five, we need management. We need management. Now, these are the requirements that we need before starting a livestock farm. Capital is the money needed to start the farm. Capital is the money needed. For example, you can use capital to buy land. You may use capital to buy animals that you are going to rear on the farm. You may need capital to pay workers, the labor. Land is where you are to put your farm, because you cannot have the farm in air or on the lake. You will have the farm on the land. That's why land must be there. You cannot begin livestock farming when you don't have land. You can't keep animals in air. Next is labor. You may have land, capital, but if you don't have workers, the livestock farm may not function very well. So you need workers to look after animals and to provide care to these animals. Market. Where will you sell the animal products? Where will you sell your animals? So you must have market for your products that you'll be getting from the farm. That's why market is very important. Then management is people to manage your livestock farm. For example, you may have workers, but these workers need managers. Workers need managers. People need to be managed to work. So you need a farm manager. So a farm manager comes under management. So these are some of the requirements needed to start a livestock farm. And when you talk about livestock, we are meaning sheep, goats, cattle, or cows, bulls, pigs, all those are under livestock. Next, we look at farm records. Okay, now let's look at what we call farm records. What are farm records? Farm records are information or is information about activities on the farm. Farm records is written information This is written information. This is written information about activities on the farm. Farm records simply means written information about activities on the farm. We look at types of farm records. Types of farm records. We have so many, around 5 or 6 types of farm records. Types of farm records. 1, we have breeding records. Breeding records. Number 2, we have production records. Production records. Number 3, we have health records. Health records. Number 4, we have feeding records. Feeding records. Feeding records. Number 5, apart from feeding records, we have inventory records. Inventory records. Then we have income and expenditure. Income and expenditure records. So these are types of farm records. Let's begin by looking at farm records. By breeding records, I mean. Breeding records, they show the types of breeds, the types of breeds that are on the farm. Are they local breeds? Are they local breeds? Are they exotic breeds? Are they crossbreeds? So they show different types of breeds. Then production records, they show if they are cows, how much milk you get on a daily basis. If they are chicken, how many eggs do you collect in a day? Health records, which diseases are affecting your animals on the farm. And how often do these animals fall sick and which diseases affect them? Feeding records, they show how much food is eaten by every animal and the type of food eaten. Inventory records, they show the number of farm tools. How many hoes do you have? How many pangas? How many tractors? How many lorries? How many wheelbarrows? And so on. Those are inventory records. Then income and expenditure records, they show how much money you earn and how much money you spend on the farm. Reasons why farmers keep farm records. Why do farmers keep farm records? Why farmers keep farm records? Farmers keep farm records. 1. To plan for the farm. To plan for the farm. To plan for the farm. Number 2. Number 2. To easily get bank loans. To easily get bank loans. Number 3, to be taxed fairly by the government. To be taxed fairly by the government. Then number 4, to know the profits and losses. To know profits and losses. Now, why farmers keep records? 1, to plan for the farm. That one is clear. Number 2, to easily get bank loans. You cannot get bank loans until you show your farm records, what you own, how much you earn, before the bank can give you money. So the bank has to assess and see whether you're in a position to repay the bank loan that you are trying to get. If you cannot, if your farm cannot sustain, then they may not give you that bank loan. Then to be taxed fairly by the government. These farms, taxes are paid, but you pay taxes according to how much you earn. If you earn too much, you pay a lot. If you earn less, you pay less. And how will they know how much you earn? By looking at your financial records, the income and the expenditure records. Then to know profits and losses. So those are some of the major reasons why farmers keep farm records. So that's the end of the topic. Next we look at a new topic called resources in the environment. Resources in the environment. That is the new topic. That is topic 3. 5 and 6 come to topic 3. Resources in the environment. Resources in the environment. Resources in the environment. So there are things you need to know. You need to know what a resource is and what environment is. A resource is anything that people use to meet their needs. A resource is anything that people use to meet their needs. A resource is anything people use. A resource is anything people use to meet their needs. So anything that you can use to meet your needs is a resource. Food is a resource, animals are resources, plants are resources, water is a resource, the sun, heat from the sun, light is a resource. So all those are resources. Why? They help people to meet their needs. How? We get food from animals, we get milk, we get meat, we get food from plants. So plants become a resource because they are meeting our needs of food. Then environment means people and their surrounding. Environment means people and their surrounding. Environment means people and their surrounding. Next we look at types of resources. Types of resources. We have only 2 types of resources. types of resources. I've said there are two. We have renewable resources. We have renewable resources and non-renewable resources. Renewable resources, and then we have non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources. We begin by looking at renewable resources. What are they? Renewable resources. Renewable resources. Now, renewable resources are resources that can be replaced naturally when used up. Renewable resources are resources that can be replaced naturally when used up. So we can say these are resources. These are resources that can be. These are resources that can be replaced naturally. These are resources that can be replaced naturally when used up. These are resources that can be replaced naturally when used up. So, renewable resources are resources that can be replaced naturally when used up. Look at examples of renewable resources. Examples of renewable resources. Examples of renewable resources. One, we have animals. Number two, we have plants. Number three, we have the sun. Number four, we have wind. Number five, we have loam soil. Loam soil is a renewable resource. Then we have water. Water, there are 6 in number, include water, can stroke, can add air. So, those are examples of renewable resources. Animals, plants, the sun, wind, loam soil, water, and air. Those are examples of renewable resources. Now, question. Why are animals called resources? Why are animals called resources? Animals are used to meet people's needs. Because we say that resource is anything people use to meet their needs. So people use animals to meet their needs. That's why animals are called resources. So why are animals called resources? Animals are used to meet people's needs. Animals are used to meet people's needs. Animals are used to meet people's needs. That's why they are called resources. Then, another question. Why are animals called renewable resources. Why are animals called renewable resources? Animals can be replaced naturally when used up. Animals can be replaced. Animals can be replaced naturally when used up. Animals can be replaced naturally when used up. Another question: how can animals or plants be replaced naturally? How can animals or plants be replaced naturally? Animals and plants can be replaced naturally through reproduction. Through reproduction. Through reproduction. That is how animals and plants can be replaced naturally. So that one marks the end of our topic, our lesson I mean. That one marks the end of our lesson. In our next lesson, we shall begin by looking at non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources. Otherwise, thank you so much for being attentive. May the Almighty God bless you. If you know you've not bought term 2 booklet, run or rush to school and get one for yourself. Otherwise, God bless you.